Hey, what's happening? Before we jump into the show, I wanted to see if you had any music on a hard drive. You have a band, you have a project, and you want to self-release your own music. Well, there's an easy way to do it. You can go to distrokid.com/VIP/hyphenate and go get your music up on all the streamers. You keep 100% of your royalties, and you can get 30% off by using this code. It's a great, easy way to get your music up on the streamers and share it with your fans, your friends, your family, your mom, your dog, everybody. Everyone wants to hear it. But go to distrokid.com/VIP/hyphenate, HYPHENATE, and send me the link. I want to hear it too. Send your mom the link. Send your dog the link. They all want to hear it too. We'd like to thank our sponsor, iZotope, the absolute leaders in intuitively designed plugins for audio restoration, mixing, and mastering. At iZotope.com, you'll find a plethora of tools and suites that will enhance your audio production, whether it's voice, video, podcast, or a full production recording session. Check out the industry-standard audio repair tool, RX11, or the multi-tool mixer plugin, Neutron 5, or the powerful Ozone 11 mastering suite, plus tons more. Go to iZotope.com and use the code FRET10 at checkout for 10% off. That's FRET10 to get 10% off at checkout. And again, the website is iZotope.com, IZOTOPE.com.
I don't come in saying, I play music, I've been in bands. I just start talking, and they're like, how did you really like paid attention? Like, you actually like listened to this, and like, yes, like, isn't that the point?
What's happening? Thank you so much for tuning in to Hyphenate with me, your host, Randy Randall. This is our show for Thursday, June 19th. A very solemn Juneteenth for those who celebrate the holiday or observe the, I don't know what you call it, not a holiday, but a day of remembrance. Yes, on today's show, I have a very good, dear old friend, Juan Velasquez. I always want to call him Juan Vegoda. That's his Instagram handle. From the band Abe Vigoda. I've known Juan for decades now, and we've toured and done lots of traveling and lots of shows together, even with his bands after Abe Vigoda. It was really sweet and really fun to get to just sit down and chat with him one-on-one. I feel like we're always, so much more, chatting in the backstage or in the context of bands and for friends or large groups. But it was nice to kind of sit with Juan and hear his story and talk about what he's up to now, his journalism, and all the good stuff that he has going on. We'll get to that in a minute, but I just want to observe, the ongoing escalation of immigration, terrorism happening in Southern California, around Los Angeles, it's not good. I can say that. It definitely feels as though the government is kidnapping people, because I think that's exactly what the government is doing. The federal government has declared war on working class people in Southern California. And it's not about legal status, because they don't know legal status. They're just picking up brown faces and brown bodies, or anybody they want, and throwing them in vans and taking them away. This is not about, reducing the pull of, or the strain on taxes and resources for, public services. It's really just horrific, and it needs to stop. But apparently we have a war going on in the Middle East as well. Many things are happening. It's hard to talk about it. It feels so personal. I feel like all of the just everything in Southern California right now just feels just really tough. I think we're all angry, we're all outraged, we're tired. I think at least, for the older crowd, definitely just feels like, the fires earlier this year, and just this non-stop just gross, flagrant abuse of power. I forget if I talked about this on shows already, but a few weeks ago when everything kind of kicked off in Paramount, California, I had just been in Paramount that Monday working with some friends who make art and make music, and we do this volunteered music program that coincides with a mural program that happens at underfunded schools where I'll help coordinate with a friend to bring artists to schools and help put up murals. And then I work as a musical director for this project, and we put together a band, and we go to a school in Paramount and sing songs. And this year we sang "What's So Funny About Peace, Love, and Understanding," the Nick Lowe song made famous by Elvis Costello, and it was something we had selected for for the students to sing, and it's beautiful. It was really fun. I think it's an uplifting song. It's great for kids. It's a good message. And relevant today as it was, when it was written, if not more so. And, I think maybe Nick was taking the piss a little bit, kind of sort of a post-hippie burnout sort of thing. But I think, on its face, it means something. It means something today. And for that to be that Monday before ICE agents came and started ripping people out of parking lots, going, stalking U.S. citizens in grocery store parking lots, graduations, places of employment, and just throwing them in the back of a van. It was just out fucking rageous. And just so sad. So, all of the protests have been needed, and it just feels like it's just getting double down. But the bigger national narrative is that that LA's under siege, or there's some bigger sort of violence that's spreading through the city. It's really isolated and localized, and I think more of what's happening is a lot of community organizing and a lot of peaceful protests and a lot of demand for change is happening in a very positive way. And just people of Southern California just saying, these are our voices. We want to be heard. This can't be happening. We need help. We need unity. We need to stop this reign of terror, that's coming down from the federal government. So that's how I'm seeing it here from Los Angeles today, live, coming to you this week on this Juneteenth of 2025. I really don't know what's going to happen next. I think I can get lost in a rabbit hole of conspiracy and fear and nihilism and existentialism and all the different things that I think everybody's facing with around the globe it's just beyond negligent incompetence to just racist, systematic annihilation of a working class in America. It just feels horrendous. It feels horrendous. So I hope this podcast is not a bummer. It's meant to be, little bit of levity, a little bit of fun, or at least information, entertainment. That's how I engage with podcasts. I like to I don't know, let my mind wander for a while, or just do something else, something to have on in the background while I'm doing laundry or driving, or, just going about my day, watering the plants, cleaning up the house, out for a walk, etc. But I don't know, man. I hope everybody out there is doing okay, and you're hanging in there, and you are suiting up and showing up and making your voice heard, Let people know how you feel, what's going on, and be there, show up for each other, and just support your community, support your people, because we're all people in this thing, man. There is no difference between you and your neighbor. We're all here together. We're all just people in this thing, and I think we gotta show up and support our neighbors and our and each other, and be there. So let's throw to my interview with my good friend Juan, and we will Yeah, we'll get into some music journalism, some stories of the smell, and tours, and Smashing Pumpkins, and all the rest. All right, thanks. Juan, welcome to Hyphenate. How you doing?
I'm really good. Thanks for having me, Randy.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on. I've wanted you to come on the show. I've been thinking about asking you to come on, but you are such a heavy hitter and so accomplished as a journalist. I think that I was intimidated that you would think my podcast was a little too DIY and down.
Absolutely not.
Well, it's great to have you on, man. I appreciate it.
No, I'm yeah. Of course. No, I'm stoked. I was really happy to hear about the invite.
Yeah. So what's been going on? We've known each other for a lot of years, but I feel like we haven't been in super close contact probably the last 10 years. What's going on?
Oh my gosh. What's been going on? Yeah. So I mean, still doing the music stuff. Me and Michael Vidal, who were in Abe Vigoda together, have this band called Cupid and Psyche, which we've been doing since
I was there for your first show.
Yes.
Shows, Permanent Records.
Yeah, for sure. And we've been we've been doing that since since 2021 ish, and that's been really cool. Before that, I was in a band called Lunch Lady, which we played with No Age, of course, and before that, I was in a band called Roses, and I've been doing the music stuff nonstop since Abe Vigoda days, which is when I met you. And
I mean, how old were you? Yeah. Were you 18? Probably when we met.
I was probably
playing younger than that.
I think I was probably 17 or 18 when we met. Yeah, for sure. I was really young. So, So
was it?
But
did we meet? Did we meet in the Inland Empire? There was a house show out in
no.
There, or was it at the Smell? Or
I think it was at the Smell. At the Smell, and is because we kind of had met Miko Miko, and that's sort of how we kind of all got introduced. But I think we definitely hung out at a Wives show in Riverside at Aaron Allen's house. I know for sure that happened. Yeah.
Palace, something Palace. What was it called?
Pixel Palace. Pixel Palace. Yeah.
I think that's where I remember us actually talking. Because I remember I would see people. It was such a social thing. I really feel like Mika Miko were the glue of that scene. I think they just had so much energy, and everyone was so attracted to their energy.
Yeah, totally.
And everything they did, that I think even just Dean and I standing next to them just made our lives so much more social and interactive. And I didn't have that in me, necessarily at the time. So I was kind of just oh wow, I'm meeting all these new people all of the time, and there was always an extra fifth member of Mika Miko, just a random girl that was always hanging around too. I'm like, are you in the band? Are you in a different band? What are you doing? Who are you? And then there'd be the rotating, then I think the rotating gay friend of Jennifer or the band. It was
100%.
You're in the band? You're not in the band.
Yeah.
You're just the hype man. Okay. Ronnie, there was
oh my god, for sure. Yeah,
would go on to become good friends, but in the time in the moment, I'm just I'm just a guy going to college and playing in a punk band, and now I'm hanging out with all of these younger girls and younger gay kids. I don't have this. I'm not this social. I don't know what's going on.
That's so funny to me because I always thought of you as very social. I feel you're always just so friendly and outgoing, and a good time, to be honest. So that's very surprising to me. Yeah.
Well, maybe that was the alcohol. I think that might have helped a lot at the time too.
Maybe that always helps.
You know what I mean?
What's our age difference? I'm 39. How many years are we? Okay, so I kind of got I always kind of got a big brother vibe from you and Dean, which was but it's so funny because there's not that much of an age difference, but I guess when you're 17 or 18, it feels crazy when people are 24. You're oh my god, these are punk veterans.
28 when I we're Jim, you're almost 30. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's so wild.
Yeah, I think I fell into some kind of de facto big brother role in a lot of those kind of situations, only because I don't think I don't think I was like, 'cause I always had bigger brothers, and I always had friends who were older, and I think I always dated women who were older. I just had this
Mhm.
kind of like, I like was self-identified more as a Gen Xer, and those were all my
Yeah.
heroes, and that was kind of my like, I was more interested in that than the younger kids, you know, and so
Yeah.
I was born in 81. By the way, yeah, my wife and I talk about this all the time, where like that cusp, that like, you know, the
Yeah.
cusper of things of it all.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I would go more towards Star Wars than Power Rangers, you know, and so that
Yeah.
kind of just
Yeah.
was where I was. So then being introduced to a younger group of creative people, and it was this very social kind of thing, but I was also like, I'm not of them, you know what I mean? I just didn't feel like, I'm not like, we're not really on peers grounds, but not because I looked down or I thought I was better, but I just felt older and just felt a little bit more othered or amongst that
Right.
kind of thing. But then is, you know, but it just felt like, but I felt more comfortable in that role, especially because it was when it came, you know, people were dating or people were hooking up and these kind of things. I'm like, I don't think this is my scene. This is a little too young for me, and for me to really feel comfortable here. Like I can hang out, I can play shows, but that's not
Yeah.
really what I'm looking for in that kind of
That's so
world,
funny.
you know. And so I think I just kind of defaulted to that, to being dad, to being big brother, kind of feeling like, okay, I'm just gonna let's help organize the show, make sure everybody gets home safe. Let's have fun.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And it's so funny, like thinking about that, like in hindsight, like I would have never guessed that you would have felt like that. Cause I think I think everyone's just so self-conscious. Right. And they
Of
think
course,
like,
you never know that
and
right at the time,
everyone probably felt like an outsider, even though they were in, you know, or like
right? That's a
it's
punk
so
theme right there.
interesting. 100%. And I was always like, you know, I would hear like you and like Dean like talk about, and even Miko and stuff talk about like this punk stuff that like you guys gave me. Hearing all of you guys gave me like a punk rock like kind of like education, because I kind of came from a more indie rock like K Rocky sort of like that kind of world like growing up, and then I got into punk later, like in like my early 20s, really, if I'm being honest. Like that's when I discovered like, you know, like maybe like 18, 19 is like when I discovered like, I don't know, like bands like the Slits and like all this kind of stuff. And it was all because of all you guys, right? So because I was like, well, these are such cool people and they have this whole other language. And so I felt like an outsider, but in a different way, right? Which is just so funny to me, because I was like, oh, they're letting me hang out with them. Like I'm like the nerd. It's like that's how everyone always has like something, I think.
That's totally the case, right? And especially for a place like the Smell, which seems so like inviting and open and, you know,
Yeah.
friendly and a safe space for everybody. But you realize it's that age, and it's just everybody like, oh, I'm the weird one. It's everyone in a
Yeah.
room. You know, it's almost like a meme now. Like no one knows I'm the weird one in this
Yes.
room. When everyone's thinking the same thing. We're all the weird ones.
Exactly.
Yeah. If we were the cool ones, we'd be somewhere else. We'd be at like the sports bar.
Yeah,
But it's funny, but even me, like with the punk stuff, like, I mean, I grew up not too far from you, for where you grew up in the Inland Empire. I mean, I grew up in Walnut, which was, you know, kind of in the suburbs, and I had K-Rock and I had, you know, MTV and all that stuff. Our friends had MTV, but it was that kind of thing of like, you know, I had two older brothers who were born in like 68 and 69. So they were like of the like Jane's Addiction, Red Hot Chili Pepper, sort of Paisley Underground-y sort of, you know, they graduated 88. And so by that point, I mean, I'm only 7 years old when they're graduating. And so, but that, you know, that little, but I got to listen to a lot of, you know, Jane's Addiction in the car, which is, you know, just, so I knew of stuff like that, but it wasn't necessarily punk, but it was that kind of thing. And I could sing you all the lyrics to Blood Sugar Sex Magic, which is not, you know, my like proudest moment, but it's in my part of my DNA growing up. You know, like I can't even, I feel like they're one of those like bands that obviously have a lot of problems and people have problems with them, as they should. But there's also a lot of love for them. And I'm in a spot where like, I don't know, that was like my brother's favorite band. And so I just grew up with that. I have no ability to really give like a formal judgment on them as a band for what their music is worth, because it was just such a soundtrack of me being a young kid driving around with my cool older brother, going to like a skate park or going to see shows, or, you know what I mean? It was what was in the air while I was like falling in love with music. Even if I wasn't necessarily falling in love with that music, I was falling in love just with life and music at that time. So anyway, but I didn't have the punks. I remember Dean playing me the Misfits, and I was like, Misfits were mall punk. Like that was like what the football jocks wore in my school. You know what I mean? It was a weird kind of thing. It wasn't like John Hughes. I mean, what was your high school experience like?
Oh my gosh, my high school experience was it was so funny. Like I think It's like, it's so funny how in 4 years, like, it's such a crazy formative time. And like, I feel like going into high school, I was very into like corn. Like, I
Okay.
was really into the band Corn and like Limp Bizkit and like the Beastie Boys,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
that was like, so that was that, and that was like very like of the moment. Like, it was like, that was like currently like kind of like cool or whatever. And of course, I like the Pumpkins and stuff. That was like my first band I got into when I was probably like in third grade. So I was obsessed with that band. And like anything on K Rock, I thought was really cool. And at the time, it was like, they'd always play like a lot of '90s stuff. Um, but yeah, but at school, like my high school experience was, I think like, it was like, it's so funny. Like, it was not like a John Hughes movie. Like, going to high school in Chino, public high school in Chino, was like, there was like cliques, I guess, but it was like, a lot of skater guys. It was like a whole skater guy situation, like all the
Mhm.
skaters and like the cool like skate girls that hang out with them.
The
And there
Betty.
was like kind of, it was a very like Latino. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And like, or just like, girlfriends of a lot of them. And like,
Yeah.
um and then it was like a really like Latino high school. So there's like kind of like sort of like a cholo-y vibe. And sorry, I think like this thing's going on. And then sorry about that. And But honestly, like, it felt like it didn't feel like people were like in my high school like really into anything that cool. And I feel like it was really easy to find those people that were like into anything kind of remotely alternative in any way. And it was, people wearing band shirts or like stickers or patches or whatever. And there was only a little bit of us. So like, I think like it was, I had like my own little group kind of like that was into like, you know, alternative music or whatever. And that's sort of like where I met like Michael and my bandmates in Abe Vigoda and stuff. We all went to high school together. So we had like our own little thing, but it was, I don't know. It felt very like, I don't know. I feel like I didn't really have much interactions with like other groups in high school. I guess it was not like a movie. It felt very not like that at all. But it was really easy to find people who were into cool shit because there wasn't
Did
that
you guys
many.
did you guys play like the talent show, or was there like a cool like lunchtime sort of like creative
Oh
club
my
hang or
god.
that kind of thing? Was that was part of the story?
So it's kind of funny. So there was like some people that were kind of, I had a guitar class. I took guitar class for like one semester or something. So like there was that kind of like connection with people who were into music, and like me and David from Abe Vigoda were in that guitar class and stuff. But as far as like, there was like a lunchtime like band thing, and me and Michael and our friend Meredith like had this little band that we kind of created, and we played just one thing, and it was this like lunchtime thing where they would have like bands play, and we did it, and it was like really pretty bad. Like, it was not very good. And it was like a little bit embarrassing, and it was like I thought it was gonna make me feel really cool, but like it just like wasn't it. Like, people didn't get it, and it was like, it was like Michael played guitar and I played guitar and like a keyboard, and our friend sang, and we had like a little drum machine, and it was like fucking random. It was the weirdest thing ever, and people were just like, "Oh, this is not like fun or cool," and like, so even then, like, it was kind of a fail. But yeah, I forgot what I was saying. um,
No, but it's good. That about paints that picture. So 5 years younger than me in Chino, and yeah, kind of the alternative world that was around. I'm so curious. There was a friend's. I'll share a little bit about my experience. I mean, I was like had a 4-track, and I was like recording songs and stuff in high school, but I always had friends that had bands, and I could never really like. I didn't want to be in their bands. I always thought they were kind of. It was just weird. Or like one friend had like a ska band. I was like, I'm definitely not going to play in a ska band. But I had a 4-track machine, so I could record bands. I had this kind of thing where like, oh yeah, pay me like $20 and I'll record your demo or whatever. And I
yeah,
just had like nothing microphones, a little 4-track. But there was another friend's band they were called Absolute Par, and it was like they were like big Smashing Pumpkins and like Smiths fans,
okay,
and it was like a girl who really wanted to sing, and then shy, like, Latino girl bass player. And then Ben was like white, but again, Walnut has a very kind of like, Latino and kind of vibe to
yeah,
everything too. But it was interesting because I think he really was, he was queer, but in a way that like no one talked about, in that kind of high school
Sure.
sort of way. Like, but he loved Smashing Pumpkins, loved Rage Against the Machine, and had this kind of thing that was very like alternative. But then it's been great, kind of catching up with him over the years and kind of like seeing his own like development. And just like, but he was just it was tough. He was chubby and had the acne, but was singing his heart out. Loved these songs, and so I remember like recording their band, and even I'd perform with him. I'd like press samples. I was kind of like trying to be like the Brian Eno like friend, when they played the Roxy and stuff, because I was just stoked that they're playing music, and they practiced and stuff.
Yeah.
But there was something about I think the kind of the queer codedness too, that even at that time, like in high school, I was just like, I don't understand. Like this seems so hard for him. Like this whole thing is just so hard. You know what I mean? But it was really like, like he's not talking about it, but he's not happy. But he's not. Yes. It was like, so I was like, it was very much like Chrysalis sort of thing of like, when is Ben going to become Ben? Like when is this, when does he get to be who he wants to be? And
totally.
So, I mean,
it
just seems like a parallel sort of maybe in your story too, where high school, the social situation doesn't really have room or dictate a space for, at least at that time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh my God.
Where I know I am, but
yeah. No, I mean, I feel like, I totally relate to that, because it's so funny, because I feel like I was, obviously like not comfortable with sharing that with like, I mean, I told like my close friends, like Michael knew, like I told Michael was one of the first people I ever told and stuff, that I was gay. And that was, because like Michael's the sweetest person. And like, I knew he would like, still love me, be my friend and all that kind of stuff. So I felt comfort and safety with him. But yeah, overall, it's like, I kind of just played it really under the radar. Like I was just like, I think people maybe who didn't like really know me, or like, would see me in class or interact with me, like who I didn't really know, thought I was maybe like moody or like kind of just like, and it wasn't because I was actually super depressed as a teenager. Like I was definitely anxious as a teenager. And there was, the whole idea of like hiding and all that. I think if I was just like subdued enough, and no one would clock me as anything. Like people would kind of just be like, oh, that guy is just kind of like a quiet guy. Yeah. And my friends that I was close with and like and stuff, like, it would be a different story. And I'm sure people knew that I was gay before, like I told them, and I've kind of like no one ever, called me any slurs in high school or like picked on me. And I even had like two friends that were on the football team, because like one of them really liked Radiohead and we want to go see Radiohead together. So it's just funny how like it was just like, I knew that I had to wait almost. Like I was like, I know that once I get out of here, I'll be able to figure it out. But for me, honestly, like the smell and like me and leaving Chino and like meeting people my age in LA, like in that kind of scene, like I just didn't even think about it. I was like, oh, cool. Like I can kind of just be like this new person kind of thing. Or just like be myself really. And it helped that like the first like people that we clicked with and stuff were Mika Mika, because like, being in a band with, like all women and stuff, and like just feeling comfortable around them, and like, getting really close to like Jenna and like her kind of like also helping me get out of my shell and stuff in that way. But yeah, it was one of those things that like in high school, I was just a little bit more, I think so. I mean, I feel like I was just more subdued and a little bit more, less myself, and less outgoing really.
Yeah, it's so interesting because it sort of sets the stage for so much stuff that comes later. You know what I mean? I think it's easy for us to kind of look back and go, it's like it was a huge monumental time in our lives, and then it's almost like I always feel like so much of like whatever I accomplished later in life was always held against that person, like measured up, on balance with that person who I was in high school. Which when you look at it, you live a lot more of your life after those 4 years, but there's something about the hopes and dreams and fears and embarrassments and mistakes and shame and all of this stuff of those 4 years, as you're just kind of like in a primordial soup of something that could turn into a personality. It's hard to even say there was a personality there. It was just kind of a mix of anxieties and paralysis to do anything.
Totally.
Go on to live your life and experiment and find out who you are. And then, but you always go back to that person. Like, well, what would they think? Or how am I impressing them? Am I living up to the potential or the fears? Did I do this? Did I not do that? And it's an unfair thing, but I think we obviously all do it in one form or another. You know?
Yeah. I mean, there's something to be said about how like, either it's because it's like so traumatic or so like, I guess, formative, but also just so intense of a time that it doesn't feel like that far. I always forget that like high school was over 20 years ago for me now. Like it's 21 this year, but it doesn't ever feel like that. Like it's always like, it was like high school and then after. And even though it's been like, I've lived several lifetimes since, it does, I do like feel like a strong connection to that. And it's so funny that you mentioned that like comparing yourself to that or it is just such a formative, crazy time. And I do think about that too. Like, could like, as like a high school kid, could I imagine, what would I imagine my life be like? And is it kind of like that? Is it better? Is it not there? Like, what was I even thinking? But yeah, that's just so weird. I'm glad to hear I'm not the only person that feels like that.
No, I feel like there's definitely something in that, you know what I mean? Where there's, it's that little like shadow self that sort of comes with you all the time. I mean, I think it's between that and like a father figure or whatever that is, even if it's not your actual father, but some kind of parental figure that's in your mind that lives. There's a voice or a person like, did you see that, Dad? Did you see that, Mom? Did you see what I accomplished? Did you see this? Did you see that? What do you think of this? And the reality is never matches up to whatever your brain is, or even, with when my father passed away, it didn't go away. You know what I mean? That little voice in my brain is still there. Oh wait, and that's, through parts of sobriety too, I learned about like, that's like your little tape loop. That's your little judgmental person that you've learned to live with, and it's your coping skills, and that's your thing. I'm like, okay, I can move past this now, or I can turn it down, or I can pause it and go on with my life. But it's just funny, you instill all these little mechanisms that maybe help you at one point in your life, and then stop serving that purpose later.
100%. Yeah.
But I'm just there was something, I think I'm just looking at like your Sonic Youth and Smashing Pumpkins, photos in the background. And I'm just like, oh yeah, this is high school. Totally. This is so funny.
Yeah.
Like I remember all of these things. I remember all, just the obsessions that I had as well.
Yeah.
The same kind of, thing. Where do you stand on Smashing Pumpkins now? I'm just as a
oh my God,
contemporary. Are you able to
amazing question?
Is that part of your life that it's like you can't even judge? How do you feel?
Amazing question. It's, and I feel like I'm really good at compartmentalizing, for better or for worse. So in my mind, it's like the Smashing Pumpkins broke up and ended in like 2000 or whatever, 2001.
Okay.
And I've seen them since, but it's like, I don't, as far as their catalog post Machina, which is like their 2000 record, I just kind of ignore it, and when I've seen them play, it's like, I've seen them like maybe 3 times since like the 2000, since they broke up the first time, and then put all these terrible records out. And when they play, new shit, like no one cares. And I think that's just like how it is. And Billy Corgan is just like kind of an embarrassing dude, and kind of cringy, and like, and it kind of getting, he's just become more and more egotistical in a way that is just really funny to me. But all that to say, they're a band that I still listen to all the time. Like, they're part of my musical DNA. Like, it's impossible for me not to just always love them and always have a place in my heart for them. And they're like, I still tell people like, yeah, they're my favorite band. Like, I just like, there's no way about it. I think when I was discovering them, it was just like, I just became obsessed with the world of that band. And they're kind of a band that I think, because Billy Corgan is so like kind of pretentious and stuff, I realized this later. As a kid, I just thought he was like really cool and like weird, and like had a little, he's like now it's a term that's used very, very commonly, but like world building, he kind of did that. He like had like characters in his songs, and he had like even like all the artwork, and everything was so specific, and there was like some mystery to it, and I just really like fell in love with that, and like I became obsessed with trying to decipher what the songs were about and all this kind of stuff. And so I think like they were just the band that for some reason like clicked, and then they opened me up to like truly like everything I like now. Like even if it's unrelated, so it's impossible for me to like ever like disown them as a band or whatever. I can just be like, oh yeah, they're kind of like corny now, but I'll still go see them. And James Ehal's really cool, and Jimmy Chamberlain is cool, so it's all good, you know. But yeah, it's hard to be a Pumpkins fan in 2025. But you know, they're actually more popular than ever. It seems like I feel like a lot of young people, like even like, you know, Gen Z kids or even younger, like are for some reason the Pumpkins have latched on. I see like kids wearing pumpkin shirts that they like, you know, like reprints that they sell at Hot Topic still. Like, I don't know how that band has made it. And like, I don't really see Nirvana t-shirts anymore, which is so crazy. So anyways, I don't know what's going on, but yeah, so that's my long answer to it.
Yeah, I almost wonder it's like if Nirvana were the Beatles, that like the Pumpkins are the Stones to Nirvana's Beatles. In a way, where like the Stones undoubtedly, you know, have had a longer career and they're richer for it, and they're, you know what I mean, just the lifespan of the band, even though they were never the band, you know what I mean. There was always the one above them, there was the lower tier, but they just rode that thing to just, you know, huge success. I find myself definitely at odds and almost like seeing the just the spectacle of like the contemporary Billy Corgan, you know, where the rack and floor sort of thing of it all. And it's like, I get it. He's a character. He plays the character. Billy Corgan. Yeah. But there's also like so much of it that you're just like, this is just abhorrent. You know, it's terrible as art, or as like, you know what I mean? The content that comes out is not as entertaining as the character that you see on screen. It's almost like the Three Stooges or something. You're just like, yeah, the comedy's not going to make you laugh, but just Mo Howard as a character, or like Curly, you know, like you see those faces are the Marx Brothers. Like the Marx Brothers, it's an iconic person, a persona, but if you go to watch it, you're like, I don't know, it doesn't hold up. But I think the Pumpkins had, you know, they had records. They had those, you know, those first whatever 3 or 4 records.
I mean,
influence.
Totally. Like I still reference them when making music. Like it's the language that like me and Michael really have bond. It's just like such a formative band that like we can use elements of their songs as shorthand for like things, you know, like, hey, you know the part, and he's like, of course I know what you're talking about. And it's just like an effect that like I can't think of what it's called, but I'm like, you know the part in this song, and he's like, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, and yes, let's do that. And or like this is, or like he plays me something, I'm like, and he's like, doesn't this sound like this song kind of? Like, yeah, it does. And even if it doesn't to anyone else, it is just like the language of like the band, you know, of our creative process. And in Abe Vigoda, like I met David because he had a Pumpkins like patch on his backpack, and I was like, I want to be your friend, you know? And like Reggie was like really into like, he was like a year older than me, and I thought he was like the coolest kid ever. And like, love the Pumpkins also. And like, it was just like all that kind of, it was just like, it's just like the for some reason that band just like has a grip on people, and people who are fans of the Pumpkins are like mega fans. So
oh, sure, of course, yeah, no, they definitely. He's a master, you know, sort of branding artist as well.
For sure.
There's so many business-minded sort of things. I think if you could just put it on that level, that you just go, okay, well, that's how it works. There is, you know, he's a magician of culture in that kind of way. Keeping it going. Even writing the hate is like, well, somehow it's like there's no such thing as bad press. Like he's a person of that kind of level.
Oh, totally. And I think it's not surprised that he's so into wrestling. It's like that it makes so much sense. Like that he's like that's his whole thing. His whole other side hustle is the whole wrestling thing, because like, it is this, and that's when I started realizing like, oh, now I get why my friends like I was talking to like Callie DeWitt about the Pumpkins, and he was like, they were so uncool. He was like, because you know Callie's like so fucking cool, like he's a cool guy, you know, in the best way possible. But I'm like, oh, I guess to me they were just so cool because they were like a big band, like and like they shred and they're like cool looking. And he's like, yeah, they were kind of just like corny, or like he was kind of a cornball. And I was like, I don't get it. And then now I'm like, oh my God, of course I get it. Like now that he's gone to the full, evolved into whatever, I'm like, oh, that was always there.
He probably always was that way, but just didn't show it. He was the sensitive guy.
Yes.
And then, has become more himself publicly. That you kind of see
Totally. So now I get it. I'm like, oh, I guess this is why they were not like that cool of a band to like, if you were like a cool guy in that time, so.
Yeah, I know. Is there like a queer reading on, or like a queer perspective on Pumpkins? Like, does that I'm sure it's explored in places, because it definitely feels there in ways, but again, putting it on balance with who he is now with the Joe Rogan, wrestling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it feels very different than the character that he was in the 90s.
No, I kind of, that's so funny. There's a reason that I latched onto Billy Corgan and his lyrics more than other bands that I really liked. And honestly, on par with the Pumpkins, probably Nine Inch Nails was the other band that I was so fervent and kind of crazy about, was because there is there's androgyny in lyrics often. I think Billy Corgan is not afraid to play with that, and I feel especially at a time maybe in the 90s where things, I don't know, I didn't live through it in the way that I was too little, but I assume that it was kind of more of a masculine vibe, and I feel Billy Corgan wrote lots of stuff that was through the perspective of a female perspective maybe, or switching pronouns and stuff, or just being sweet and singing kind of in a way that is not very broy and very soft and very feminine sometimes, on top of his screechy voice, but he does do that. And having a girl in the band now is not a thing, but back then I feel it was so cool. Oh my God, if every band has a girl in it, and she dresses cool and is kind of iconic in this way. And Darcy is so, something about her was just so cool. And James Iha is also has kind of long hair and kind of feminine and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, something about that was there is queerness to that band, that wasn't, present in other kind of maybe alternative bands that were more jockey. Not that Nirvana was like that, because I know that's not, that wasn't Kurt's vibe at all either.
Like a Weezer or something, just okay.
Yeah.
Or straight white men playing rock and roll. Yeah.
Yes, totally. Yeah. And there was something about that was kind of cool. And even watching, I was thinking about the Today video. And it's I don't know if you remember it, but it's Billy Corgan's driving an ice cream truck, and there's all these hot people making out and he's just kind of being this kind of a Pee Wee Herman-esque kind of dude. And something about all of it just felt very not broy, and it felt very it felt safe. Yes, yeah, and also just kind of felt something about it was it is queer in a way, thinking about it. There's a reason I latched onto it, I don't know.
It's interesting. Yeah, it was funny when you bring up Nine Inch Nails. I just remember thinking there's something off about that, or whatever it was, in the press, and then reading about them and reading interviews and stuff. And then I got the sense early on. I was like, these are just Nine Inch Nails is band nerds at band camp. You know what I mean? We're that American Pie scene. We're oh, we got really crazy at band camp. Oh, we're all nerds. We're all music nerds in band. But when the lights are off, we fist each other. And we're okay, that's cool, I guess. Then we play Bach and we're dressed up and we're really really tight and can play all this music really well, really smart musicians. But then we we dress up in really fucked up leather outfits at night, and you're cool, way to go. So that's great. Thanks for letting me know.
Totally. I mean, Nine Inch Nails in general. I mean, I just feel they're also because they're a band that was so sexy or sexual, and in a way that was I feel that was my first reading of it as hearing them was oh, this is sex music. And I was what is this? And that felt, very, and just the fact that it was industrial and danceable and all that kind of stuff was oh, this is interesting. And that, because I didn't know what they sounded like, but I would see a shirt or something, or the Nin logo. And I was that seems very I was is that metal? What is that? And then hearing it, I was and the name, and I was what? And then I heard it, and I was this is 80s sounding, or it's it was not what I expected when I actually heard it. I was like, oh, this is not what I thought it was going to be.
It was like Danzig for girls.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. That's the quote.
Yeah. Well, you could or Danzig you could dance to. I mean, that's where they always thought Danzig seemed so dark and so like mysterious and like, oh, this big skull and everything. And you hear it and it's like, this is boring as fuck. Like this is scary, but it's also horribly like boring. And, I don't know. Get a melody. Like they have the one song sounds like Elvis, and the rest of it is just
yes.
That's why when people try to tell me, "Well, Misfits was good," I'm like, "That guy, the guy with the fishnets and like the monotone voice, like this can't be good." I'm like, oh, "Okay, I get it." It was like Elvis meets the Ramones. Okay, I can.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I feel like there's so much to talk about, but I mean, so from Abe Vigoda, I mean, I'm so curious because I think you and I experienced a lot of similar events together, you know, as our bands would kind of like twin and sort of, spiral around, but we also didn't. There was obviously, just from this, first couple minutes in this conversation, we realized like, oh wait, I didn't know you were thinking this, you were thinking that. So I'm so curious, what was your experience like, and through kind of playing the Smell and then putting records out and touring? What was that? I mean, it was such a whirlwind for me, but it's funny. I've had to even talking with Jennifer from Mika Miko in the last, her and I reconnected in the last year or 2 years ago. And we were talking, and I just remember like, I've been like all over the world with like next to you, but you and I have never really had a conversation. You know what I mean? It was like we stood next to each other in Paris, in Italy, in France, and Japan, and like I've shared all these like memorable experiences with you, like technically, but like I don't really know you. I don't really know who you are. We've never really had a conversation outside of your boyfriend, my bandmate, was sort of the connector there. But
totally.
So in the same kind of way, like Dean put out the Abe Vigoda records, and so I was in the band with Dean, and so we played a lot of shows and those things. But I mean, how do you reflect back on some of those times?
Yeah. Oh my God. Now with like so much fondness, like in hindsight, I was like, oh my God, like what a fucking gift. Like what a special time that I got to have. At the time, that's not how it felt, like at the time, I mean, I loved it. It was obviously all I ever wanted. Like I was like beyond my wildest dreams to be like, oh my God, I'm in a band and I'm touring. And like, this is the stuff that I never, ever thought I would do. Like I always loved music. I always, obviously, like, after all this, like talking, but like, I could never understand, like when I would go see shows, like there was always like a divide. I was like, there's me, and then there's the people who do that on the stage. And like, and I revered them and I idolized them and I made up stories about them, like that's just like what I was like, and then being able to do that was so cool because I didn't realize that I had an avenue, and because I didn't understand what DIY was. I didn't know like really what like punk was in that sense where it's like anyone can literally do this if you like want to do it, right? So it was a shock that even happened. I quit college to do the band because I was like, going to Cal State to be like a teacher or something. Like I was going for English, and because like only thing I really liked, and so to me, it was just all like, wow, it was a whirlwind. I was like, this is cool. Like, I just like doing this. And then it caught on. And then like, because like, honestly, like, because you guys and then like Mika Miko like kind of blew up and stuff and like brought attention to like our scene, we were able to like have a little bit of a focus on us that gave us this little window that we got to like really, I guess capitalize on and like be able to, people had interest in our band and we got to tour and stuff. But like, in the beginning I was like, oh, this is so wild. But then as I was putting out more records and like seeing the trajectories of like other bands and stuff, I got very into it where I was like, I want this to be my life and I want to get bigger and bigger. And I want to do this like, not like be rich and famous, but like maybe be famous and have enough money to like live.
Sure.
But I kind of,
from tour, money, yeah.
And I mean, I'm not going to lie, like, people telling you you're great and like getting to be like in like magazines and being interviewed for Enemy and all these things were like, this is so cool. I want this to be my life forever. And it definitely,
people tell you,
oh my God.
Oh, wow, I love your band. Yeah.
It
fucks your head up.
Getting to play, like, we did a lot of opening tours, playing for like bands and like playing on these really big stages and all these places that I was just like, this is so crazy. And I thought it was going to be my life for the rest. Like, I thought it was going to be it forever. Right. And I think like I just became, I guess, like, and then I started becoming like a little bit like, oh, this isn't enough. Like, I need to make this. We need to like really make this like pop off, and like, and I started getting like, in my head about it, and like, am I doing enough? Do people actually care now? Like, I just got in my head about it, and because it's like I just wanted it to like kind of last forever, and it did it, right? Um, but like, yeah, I feel like, like broad strokes, that's like kind of what it was like for me. And I did enjoy it, obviously, like getting to travel, go to Europe and stuff. Like I wouldn't have done that, without the band. Like I had no way of doing that, of like, I had no money or anything like that. So it was like,
you had the sketchy baby Belgian driving you guys and
yes, that one time
crashing the van
yeah,
with us in Eastern Europe.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. I forgot about that. But yeah, I mean, the experience overall, like, I mean, it's like such a big question because it's like, it was everything, it was like the best and like the worst. Like I had some of the lowest moments of my life, like doing all that stuff, and some of like the most amazing times of my life doing that. And it was really cool to like have, the opportunity to like live almost, I mean, at that time it's all I cared about. So like living 100% in that world and in a creative world and was like the best thing ever, because like not everyone gets to do that. One, I know that now. And like, I learned a lot about myself, I mean, it was during like my 20s. So it was like, I did so much growing and stuff, with the band. And, so yeah.
Yeah, I know it's a lot. It's a huge question. No, it's a huge question to talk about. But I mean, I think when I look back on some of those times too, I realize like we were also a band functioning sort of at the tail end of what that band culture would be, and an independent record label, independent music, and just the financial feasibility of even that lifestyle. Mm-hmm. We didn't know it then, but looking back on it now, I mean, through streaming and, we didn't have, you could still sell CDs at Starbucks, and, mm-hmm. or you couldn't, and because that'd be selling out, or there was a debate to be had. Right. Now that's irrelevant. They're like a CD. Totally. Why is anybody buying a CD? But these were contemporary conversations and things we were dealing with, but the underlying meaning that people paid for music again, which is a very foreign idea. So we existed at that time, and then also existed prior to social media, which again seems almost unbelievable to the contemporary sort of culture. That like, well, how did you promote your shows? How did you know who your friends were? How did you post things? Or whatever. Like, how would you do the latest dance? Like, weren't you hoping your song would get on a TikTok thing? Or like, none of that existed. I don't know what you're talking about. There was magazines, there was late night TV shows. I guess those kind of still exist. You're hoping for a good review on a website, and and maybe some printed coverage, so you could see your name in Rolling Stone. And you're like, okay,
totally.
It doesn't really mean anything anymore, but and it's so. I mean, now it's like that's so cool. That it's so funny because at the time, I felt like it was towards the tail end of that. But then I would think about like, oh my God, imagine if we were in this band like in like 1995, like how different that would have been. So I mean, it's always like thinking back on like how much better it could have been or whatever. But that is true. Like it was, although some would argue that MySpace was social media, and I did use it to book an entire US national tour. So I did use some social media. MySpace worked. MySpace was actually the best thing for bands, I think. Honestly, like, I don't know. That's how I felt about it. I feel like, honestly, like it was kind of the perfect thing for a band at the time to like have a MySpace. I don't know if you felt like that about it, but for me, it like really helped. Huh. That I know Dean would connect with people, and he would book shows through MySpace.
Okay. Yeah.
I didn't have the sense of it. I didn't know whether to me, again, I just never felt like the popular kid. So to me, it was just like, why would anybody care? And I think I felt that way through most of our career. Like I got to play in Dean's band is how I looked at it for a lot of the year. You know what I mean? Like it's cool. And then at some point people would, I think they're like, no, we like your band. I'm like, my band? I'm in Dean's band. What do you mean my band? I don't have But it was a 2-man band, and somehow I made it nothing about myself. You know what I mean? I think that was the only way I was able to sort of get through it, was not taking any responsibility. and just say,
Yeah.
well, this only works because Dean's charismatic and good looking and can play the drums. Like, I don't know why I'm not doing anything. I just didn't have, I had such low self-esteem for myself through all of
Right.
it that I couldn't
Right.
really understand and accept it or really participate in any of the, like, that's kind of success. But I think it all tracks back to those, even those early days of like booking shows, or like, I was like, nobody wants to hear me play. Like, I have tapes and tapes of myself, on 4-tracks at home. I was too shy to like play the band. And when I did, I ventured out and like met Dean, and and he seemed ambitious, and I was like, okay, I could you and I could do this together. If we team up, I could be ambitious with, I'll keep writing music if you keep talking to people about places to play. Like, okay,
totally.
the show all the songs and let's go. Yeah.
Right. I think I'm the Dean. I think that I'm the Dean in this situation because Michael, we all wrote, but Michael wrote the lyrics. Michael is and even in the band now, like Michael, like, is like, I play with Michael and I compliment. It is a mutual thing, but Michael is the songwriter. Like, he's just like a natural songwriter. And like, and then I'm like, I don't mind doing the social stuff. Like, it's fine. Like, I am a naturally kind of social person, and that always was my role in Abe Vigoda, even though I grew to resent it sometimes, because sometimes I was like, okay, I'm like the manager too, obviously, like I'm doing all of it, and in a way, it's like what I wanted to do because I wanted to work out the way I wanted to work out, and I was like, I had a big fucking hustle. I'm not gonna lie, like I just wanted it to be the best thing ever, always. And so I went for it. Right. And, but I think, that's probably why my face thing didn't resonate as much with you, because I use it all the time, like to find other bands, and people be like, oh, listen to this band. And oh, the band that they recommended to play in like Tennessee or whatever, like, let's look at their top 8 favorite buddy bands and click on them and ask them. And it was just like that. And you could hear them. You could hear they had a song up. You could hear what the band was like. You can see pictures of them and be like, oh, this band seems kind of like cool. Like, maybe they'll set up a show. And I don't know how it worked, but like, to this day, I'm like, it was the best tool for bands at that time. I think it's like, I just want to talk about it because I feel like no one's talking about MySpace, but I loved it. It really was like, and it didn't feel as like toxic or crazy as things feel now. Although there was a ranking system of like who your top 8 friends were, which is like so high school, but whatever. Anyways, I digress.
Yeah. No, I mean, I want to back up and make sure I credit Dean. I mean, Dean wrote all the lyrics. He sang all the songs. Dean wrote a lot of the stuff. I'm not saying, but exactly. Yeah. Like you're saying, like Dean like would pour over every band that we'd play with, and every band on the bill, and he would have to know. And I was just like, I don't care who's playing like that. I want to make sure whatever we're doing on stage works, that the equipment works, and we can get up there and we get through the show. And I'm so much more concerned about whatever our presentation was, that there was a million bands who would play before us or after us. And there's like it always seemed like a stream of bands. Like I never got caught it's like caught on a rock in the stream. Like this one band has to be really good, or this one thing has to be good. There's going to be, I was just so fortunate. I was like, I love that we're playing a lot. There will be many opening bands, and there will be many bands we open for. Like, I don't care what either side of that. But it does matter, obviously. I mean, and Dean had a sense that, like, no, you're guilty by association or cool by association or not.
Right. It makes sense.
Again, I don't think I didn't value myself, I guess, in that kind of way. We're like, I had to be cool.
It makes sense that's why Dean owns a label. I mean, he's got an ear for other bands. He wants to hear other bands.
Yeah. No, and I was always just concerned with my own band. I couldn't care about the bands as much. I was like, they're cool. They sound good. I don't know. Maybe I could steal that riff. Or I could cop that. I think that's a good idea. But, man. And then so the whirlwind is kind of going crazy, and then everything's calmed down. And then where do you go next? What happens after that? As things quiet down.
I mean, with like the band with Abe Vigoda?
Yeah. What are you doing next? Like, where did life sort of take you from there?
Yeah, so I guess once we put out like our last record in 2010, and like didn't do as well, I guess, in a way, and didn't resonate maybe, and like we toured a lot for it, and towards the end of the touring, we kind of like were a little disillusioned. Like we did like a really long tour in Europe that should have been not so long, and we like lost money, and it was just kind of like a rough time. Everyone was kind of tired, of everything. And, it's sort of like we never broke up. We just kind of fizzled out, basically. It's kind of like what it felt like. It was very like, it wasn't like a big thing. It wasn't like a blowout. It was just like everyone was just like, this isn't maybe working. We're all kind of, I think we had such high hopes that things were always going to go up. And then when it didn't, instead of kind of just like reevaluating and just moving forward, I think for us, it was just maybe too much. And we kind of just like stopped doing the band, and there's other extenuating circumstances, but ultimately it was just like not working anymore. So I like,
there was a lot of dating.
That's kind of like what it was like towards the end. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
what did you do next? How did you sort of move from there?
Yeah. So I just like ended up just like, saying I like the idea of like playing music. I was like, I'm done. Like, I don't care anymore. Like, I was like, that was cool. And a lot of it was just like ego, and I was just like bummed, and I was just so disconnected from all of it. So at the time, kind of towards the end of Abe Vigoda, and then after, for a long time, I worked as like a personal assistant to like a music behind the scenes kind of like music industry guy. And so I kind of had like a normal job, and like kind of just like for a while, I just kind of spent time like honestly like doing just dumb shit, like going to a lot of gay bars and stuff, like just kind of like trying to like tap into that like aspect of my life and all that. And kind of through that, I met my friend Mark, who I ended up starting a band with called Roses with him and my friend Victor, who I'd known for a long time. And I was like, you know what? I want to play music again. Like, this is actually fun, because I was just jamming with this guy, and he's an incredible songwriter, really good singer. And I was like, this is cool. And it was like a different vibe. And so I did the same thing. I like got into like manager guy mode, and like I strangled this band towards the end of like, I want this to work. And then my friend's like, I just wanted to do this for fun, and this is getting out of hand. And it was like we had done like a little bit of touring, we had put out a record, and I was just like, let's go. Like, I was like, you know what, like, I'm gonna get that thing again. And it didn't work out. And then I was like, okay, fuck, what am I gonna do now? And then same thing with Lunch Lady. Then I started another band, because I was just like, I don't know what else to do. And it was just like, and that was a whole different kind of band, and it was fun to have like my friend Rachel was the singer, and that was really cool to like have to be in a band with a woman, and that's always the thing I wanted, and it was like a nice vibe, and it was a really, and I being in a band with Robert was really cool, because we'd always wanted to play music together, and I'm so glad we got the chance to play music together. But yeah, COVID happened, and like then the wind came out of our sail. We just like, yeah, we're done. Like we don't need to do this. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a really quick run through, but my band history. But yeah, and then yeah. So that's sort of around the time that I started like doing the music journalism stuff, was around like 2021. And that's kind of like where until the band with Michael, like that's kind of, which has been fun to do that. But that's kind of like where a lot of my creativity and like my passion is kind of like transferred to, I think, is like working as like a music journalist, or trying to, and talking to bands and learning how to write stories about them. And just kind of like, the last few years have been like a really cool, like education on, just like learning how to be a music writer, which I'd never done before. And I've really enjoyed. I'm very surprised by it.
It's incredible. I mean, I've read your stories, and I've been kind of following your career as you go. My wife and Shannon and I are always just like, "Wow, yes!" Shannon was a music journalist. When we first met, she was kind of doing it on the side and writing stuff, and she's like, "Oh my god, did you read Juan's story?" Like, she knows, she follows. Did you see what Juan?
Oh my god!
And so
cool.
It's always so fun just to see it. And by what I've loved too is, the just sort of the visibility of kind of, the queer perspective, and sort of just documenting music, and kind of just, putting that lens on it through publications, and also just your own voice, which I think, again, for as long as we've known each other, it's sort of something that, it's, I don't think we ever really talked about. So it's fun to see that you're writing and kind of see the stuff. And it's the kind of thing where it's like, I feel like I've gotten to know you better through reading your writing, through
Mm,
reading your journalism pieces. And I don't
awesome.
know. It's so cool to see that. I mean, is that something that you find is like has been a change or kind of maturity into that, or kind of how do you feel like your voice within that kind of the queer sort of diaspora, is that the correct word, or the queer sort of like
Yeah, yeah,
spectrum
yeah.
of like music journalism, like how has that developed and how have you kind of come to that over time?
Yeah. So like, yeah. So like, because I first started writing for them, the publication I work for, like they, we cover only, it's a queer magazine or queer publication. So we only cover queer artists, which the cool thing is that now it's like, I feel like even like when I was in the, first starting out playing music, like it was kind of a rarity or I just wasn't tuned into it. And now there's just so many like really amazing queer musicians and putting out really cool stuff. So it's like I have plenty of people to choose from and stuff like that. But like it was interesting because I was only writing about queer musicians in a sense, it was limiting because it's like I could only I couldn't write about like every single band that I loved or new bands that I like because not everyone is queer in those bands and stuff like that. So in a way it was like I became like I don't know, I learned a lot about myself through that because hearing other queer musicians talk about their experiences and like what things were like and even like younger queer musicians were like it's not such a novelty or not such a thing that you really think about or talk about. It was cool and I think like I think like I grew as I did more of it. Like I think I grew as in like a like the interview part of it is like my favorite. Writing I like, but it's very challenging for me, and I'm still like learning how to like get there and express myself exactly how I want to. But the conversations are always so good. Like I always find that I go deeper than I think it's going to go, and people are very like have been very responsive, and I don't know like if musicians are all very polite, but everyone is very like that was a really good conversation, or like I didn't expect that, or you clock this thing, and I don't come in saying I play music, I've been in bands, I just start talking, and they're like, how did you really like paid attention, like you actually like listened to this, and like I'm like yes, like isn't that the point, like
Well,
who
yeah.
knows what other people are doing?
You've been on the other side of the interviews too.
Yes.
You've probably been part of a lot of really bad interviews as the interviewee,
Yes.
and you're
Yes.
like,
Yeah. Where you're
oh,
like, what? Like, I've already answered this and it's in the bio. But, anyways, but yeah, it's so I just like getting into that, like getting into with anyone, like getting into like not even just process, but sometimes I'd rather just hear about like their story or like what's going on with them or like how they feel about all of it. Cause I think like, I don't know. I can only put my experience onto it sometimes where I'm like, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? How does like, talking about performance and stuff that maybe they don't get asked about a lot. So it's been like a cool like learning experience, and I realized like how much I really like it, and um, and now like I also write for Teen Vogue, so I've been writing about like other bands. I got to interview Lifeguard recently. We talked about you a little bit,
yeah.
and that was really cool, and just being able to connect like, and that conversation actually like really got me excited about writing more and like finding more bands because it was like it just talking about this stuff is like really helpful to me because I think like it feels good that like there's people that feel the same way about music and stuff that I do, and I forget that sometimes because I'm not as tapped into like local like DIY stuff, and I don't play that many shows, and it's a very different vibe for me. But being able to connect with like young musicians, even if it's just in this like kind of professional way, has been really cool. And like even if 50% of it doesn't end up in the article, like I got to talk about like this heat with them and talk about
Oh
like
yeah.
weird nerdy stuff and talk about like atonality for like 15 minutes and like it's just the best, and so I don't know, I really love it and I want to do so much more of it, and I don't know, it's a nice place to put like all this like quote unquote useless music knowledge that I have that I've acquired over the decades. It's like such a fun place to use that.
Yeah, totally. No, I mean, it makes sense too. And I think it's also just part of that aging process too. I think as, it happens to everybody, like as we all
Yeah.
go through our years and kind of get to places, it's like, oh, okay, well, what is my role in the society or in the culture around me at this age versus
Yeah.
kicking rock? I think there's always these moments of like, okay, well, here's what I was known for. I had a public persona and had a public interaction at this age. And now how do I shrink away because I don't look like I did when I was 25? You know what I mean? Am I allowed to be a 35-year-old version of myself publicly? Or am I allowed to be a 45-year-old version of myself? Like, does anybody want that as a rejection within just this sort of thing? Or like, does anyone even care when the answer is probably no. All of those things, no one gives a shit about anything we do. But having your own sort of relationship with that sort of public, thing, even as a writer, you have a byline, you know what I mean? You have, and just we're all expected to have some type of branding, in this age of social media as well. And how do you share that? And how do you tell that story of yourself in social ways? They're bigger questions.
Totally.
We're going to keep going. We're going to be 55. We're going to be 65. We'll be saying, these years are just going to keep coming. And
totally.
Adjust that,
Yeah. And totally. And I think for me, it's like, it's so interesting. Like, it's thinking about like this trajectory with like the writing stuff and like, and it's funny because my dad, he's always like, even like before the band stuff, he's like, I don't know why he had this idea. I mean, I guess because I was like, loved like reading and stuff. He's like, I always thought you were going to be a writer. I don't know what it is. And like the fact that you're doing it now is like really interesting to me. And then it reminded me that actually in high school, and I never made it. I never did it. But like, I wanted to do like a zine, like a fanzine. But before I really even knew what that was, I just was like, oh, it's like a music magazine that I get to make. Like I didn't have fanzines, like punk fanzines. So I actually had set up, interviewed, and took pictures, like with my disposable camera of this band that I don't know if you know them. Do you remember this band? They're called Her Space Holiday. They were on Tiger Style back in the day. Okay. They're like electronic indie rock. It's like electronic indie emo kind of stuff. I emailed them. I had the balls to email them, tell them that I had this like thing. They were so down. They played a show at the Knitting Factory. I went backstage. I did the interview. I was like 16 and I completely had forgotten about this. Nothing ever came of it. I never wrote it. I never did it. I think I just got nervous or let it go and I was like, holy shit. Like that's what I do now. Like I go, I interview the bands. If I can do it in person, I'll take pictures of them. And it feels like this little DIY thing, but it's, on like a real publication or whatever. But I realized like, oh shit, this is like what maybe I always wanted to do. But like, then when I got in the band, I thought it was like lame or like thought like it wasn't like a thing or like that wasn't where I was going to, that wasn't like my trajectory. But now like having something that's just me, like I've always shared it with the band, and it was just fine. Like I have no ego about the music stuff. I like enjoy that I'm like a collaborator more than like the main songwriter. And I like that. That's my role. But with this, it's like, this is just me. Like, this is like the first time that it's like, this is just me putting out something that I did. And I think that's part of why I find it so intoxicating and want to do it like the way that I did the band stuff. Like now I'm like, fuck, like I was telling you before we started recording, like now that like, I'm not going to be working there anymore. Like I want to just do this full time. I just want to write and I want to figure it out. And I want to hustle the way that I did with the band, And it's only hitting me talking to you right now that like, oh shit, this is like what I actually want to do now. And it's just like not at all what I thought. Like I would have never thought that I'd be on the other side of it, but I'm glad because I don't ever want to lose touch on like music. I never want to be one of those people that says there's no good music. I never want to be that person that only thinks about the music they listen to when they were a kid. It's like, there's always something new. There's always something interesting. And like, if I'm going to do this music journalism thing, I better be on top of it and I better like listen and I better like be open-minded. And I think it'll keep me in that mode. Cause I don't want to lose that, and not that I'm like super old, but like, I don't know that many people that are in like, even in their late 30s that are on top of like new music, So yeah. Anyways,
it's good to stay open to stuff too. I mean, I have my jags of just being cynical or just calling it like, oh, well, that's the Pixies part, that's the New Order part, that's the Bad Health part. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's so much better to just be like, cool, way to go, like instead of critiquing it, just being like, it sounds awesome. It sounds like you guys have a cool record collection. I don't know. That sounds like it's too backhanded. but no,
But
I
yeah,
think it's great.
it's impossible not to reference things at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I mean that's part of the benefits or the upside of that the streaming world, or this kind of like unending knowledge bank that that everyone has
Mm,
access to. Is younger people don't have that sense of rarity of like, oh, no one ever heard the second This Heat record because it was out
yeah.
of print and no one had it. Like you could grow up
Yeah.
as a 14-year-old playing this really obscure record ad nauseum, and it's never going to get scratched or broken, or your tape's not going to break, or some of the grooves are going to get worn out. Like you could just listen to this really obscure music if you're pointed in that direction and have
Yeah.
access to it, and let it influence you and write a record around it or whatever.
Totally.
When in the past, even there was restrictions on what we had. It's like, well, that was a B-side from Japan pressing. Like no one's ever really heard
Yeah.
that. But to us, that was the hunt. That's what made it fun.
Mhm.
You could find
Yeah.
those things. But now it's just like it's all out there, and like that's no shade on that. That's cool. I'm not going to
No.
gatekeep and say, oh,
No.
well, it's not the same. It's like that's rad. You have that. Like it is a great song.
What I think though is there is still a hunt, because I think there's so much to me. It's like the fact that there's so much. The hunt is a little bit like reverse. It's like less like, oh, I can't find this thing that I like that I know is out there, and then you hear it and you're like, oh my god, I would have never found it. Now it's like there's so much that it's kind of hard to find the thing. It's like digging through like at a thrift store or something, where it's like, yeah, like so. So I think I also, that's not how I'm discovering music, really, that stuff, because I've already discovered it. But like, I still am finding new shit all the time, right? And it's because of the internet, and it's because someone uploaded it, or because this. What I also think is interesting is that, like, when I've interviewed people that are like in their 20s, early 20s, the stuff that they latch onto that I would have missed, like they're just things because they got to it in such a different way. Like they've discovered certain things at different times that it influenced them in a way that like it was maybe something that it would have just passed me by. So I think there's always something. There's always a new way to discover it and like reinterpret things, even if everything is at your fingertips. Like in a way, like that makes it harder. I think if everything's at your fingertips, how do you take the time to obsess and listen to something? And I think it's the people who are the real seekers, which exist. Clearly the dudes in Lifeguard are real seekers. Like that's what I learned about them, was like these guys like want to know what is out there. They want to hear everything. And that's kind of what I got from them. They taught me a lot of stuff, and it's like, if you want it, you can find it, and it's not, and if you want to take the time with it, that's the challenge, I think, because it's like so easy to just like go through all of the catalog and absorb it all. And anyways, I'm kind of going off in like a philosophical tangent, but I think there's always going to be a hunt. There's always going to be like a way to discover. There's always going to be, in the fact that everything's at their fingertips is like, can be a good thing or a bad thing. But I think it leads us to like creating music that defies genre and that like is clever because of the references that are being presented. Like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And it was there, like I can bemoan the idea of like, oh, well, I used to have one CD in my car and I'd play it, for 6 months, because and even the songs I hated in the beginning, I learned to love.
Yes.
By the fourth month, and I became obsessed with all the songs that I didn't think were good. They're skippable songs. I'm like, nope, actually those are all great. I understand the artist's intent now better for having spent this long of a time. And no one says you can't do that on a Spotify record.
No.
An album that comes on Spotify, you could listen as many times as you want, but the pull to another track is always there because it's like so immediate, and you can only just one button and you could listen to a whole different band, a whole different genre, a whole different thing.
100%.
You don't have to stick on that record. So however you do that is again up to your choice and your own dedication to it. I also got obsessed with Pink Pony Club and learned how to play it on guitar and transposed it into this jazzy thing, and realized it's almost built on the same bass structure as Gigantic by the Pixies. And then kind of like doing mashup in my own mind of like, it's this repeating, looping kind of like, hopscotching bass line. I was like, oh, okay, there's something to this. So you could go down, even in pop world, you can still, the obsession is yours to have if you're interested. It's what it almost calls you out more as a fan. Like, how big of a fan are you really? Are you actually going to listen to this record, 10 times, or are you going to listen to it 100 times? And so you have to really prove your fandom versus just like, I don't know, Goo got stuck in my CD player, so I'm just listening to Goo all summer long.
Totally, yeah. Which of course, like there is something about that is like the best, which is like why like all the music I listened to in high school of the CDs that I had. It's like I can imagine when I listen to it now, I could see the CD surface and I could see it in the Discman. I could see
You knew
pulling
it
it
was one
out.
of
Like,
those records, yeah, because you even the photo shoot they did inside with the pink boas and all of the stuff they're doing, and I didn't know they were making fun of rock stars. I thought that was who they genuinely were, and like I didn't know there was a tongue-in-cheek sort of thing in my first read of this, and like the cover art of Goo, like, ooh, what does this mean? This is so dangerous. What is a ringing pettibone? I don't know what any of this means. Like, I didn't know,
100%.
The artwork is different too, and that's maybe you missed out a little bit, but you probably get that in hundreds times 100 with the band's social media. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not just cover artwork. Like you could see a whole video, a whole dance routine they would have done, a whole retrospective on the artists they love, and all these things that's going to exist in their social media stream. That isn't just a piece of paper that accompanies the record. You have a whole life and a whole world.
Totally,
an artist if you're interested in. Branding. All
okay. I totally. For so long. I agree.
Thank you. We've gone over the hour, but I'm enjoying this conversation so much.
Good.
Where do you want people to follow you? What's the best way for people to keep up with what you're doing and support you?
Yeah. Just probably my Instagram. My Instagram really just at Juan Vegoda. Follow me on Instagram. That's where I post all my stuff. If you're a band that wants me to listen to you and write about you, hit me up. If you need a band bio, I'm happy to write one. I want to continue doing this kind of work. So, if you want a music nerd like me to be, to write for you, please let me know.
You're better than Chat GPT. You could get all the words
in the
correct order, mostly.
I hope so.
That's a whole other dark conversation. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Of course. All right.
Thanks.
Bye.
Yes. Isn't that awesome? Juan rules. Thank you so much, Juan, for coming on. I appreciate it. Everybody go follow Juan on Instagram. His handle is Juan Vegoda. That's JUANVIGODA. You will not regret it. I can guarantee you that. He publishes so many great stories, has such great writing, and he's awesome. He is a good follow and a good hang. So thank you, Juan, for hanging out. Where else is good to follow him? He's got lots of writing. It's up everywhere. If you just Google Juan Velasquez, JUAN VELASQUEZ. I know everybody likes it when I spell things. Go read his writing. Go follow him on the Instagrams, and write us. Let me know what's going on with you, what bands you're listening to, and what's happening in your life. You can write me at the podcast. It's hyphenate@gmail.com. You can also find me on the Instagrams at Randy S. Randall, and I will be back on Monday with a halftime with Aaron Farley. All right. Take care. Be well, be safe, stay hydrated, lots of sunscreen. Always more sunscreen than you think you need. All right. See ya.
And Billy Corgan is just like kind of an embarrassing dude and kind of cringy and like, and it kind of getting, he's just become more and more egotistical in a way that is just really funny to me.